Good morning, everybody. Happy Mother's Day to you all. Moms, of course. You say that, and the fathers know it's not to us, but you still feel like you have to qualify it sometimes when you say that. But we are blessed with many mothers in here and amazing women that are in here. And so, of course, today I want to talk a little bit about mothers and women this morning. I hope that this will be a good lesson for us all this morning. I was helping some people move one time, and there were, men and women that were helping in the move, and there was a dresser that needed to be moved, and the dresser was mainly the clothing of the woman who lived at the home. And so she understandably did not want any men moving that clothing. And so, I thought, well, that needs to be a woman's job. And that's what I said. And then I got, a woman's job from over there, because that person hadn't heard the context of the conversation about the things that were being, taken and moved. And yeah, a man's job, we wouldn't be moving the women's clothing, right? That makes sense. So it's going to be a woman's job, right? And I was innocent in my statement and approach of that, but I got in trouble for it, and understandably so. But we live in a society where if we were to say something and we're going to get in trouble for it, where it could be actually kind of a legitimate kind of statement. But we live in a world that we have disrespected women so much so that that's why we have that kind of response. It's not an unneeded response. It's not an unfounded response. But it is a response as of a product of how we have treated women pretty much since the beginning of time. And so I want us to remind us of this morning. This title might seem obvious and something that we should understand already, but I think that we sometimes forget. And that is, she is made in the image of God too. She's made in the image of God as well. Sometimes when we read there and we think Genesis and we read that man was made in the image of God, and we think that it is just male man. But that word man there is actually the word used for mankind, humanity. And so when we should read it as humanity was made in the image of God. Well, what is that humanity? Humanity is made up of male and female. That's what Genesis tells us, that it's male and female. We're going to look at that text here in just a moment. But we continue to have a problem, it seems, in our society when we continue to disrespect women. One of the ways in which this has happened over the years is how we treat them physically. Estimates published by WHO indicate that globally about 1 in 30% of women worldwide have been subjected either physically and/or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence in their lifetime. 1 in 3. 30%. Look around in this building. 30%, 1 in 3. That's not good, church. It shouldn't be happening at all. But yet it continues to happen. I hope that this lesson will not be as somber as we continue to go, just so you know. But I think it is important for us to address the problem that is surrounding us and is actually getting worse, as we know. Now we've come to a problem where when we find ourselves in courtrooms and people ask to define a woman, they say, well, I'm not a biologist. I can't answer that question. Have you seen instances like that? They're in a courtroom and they say, well, can you define a woman? They'll ask a woman, can you define a woman? Well, no, I can't because I'm not a biologist. We've really gotten to that point, and now we have disrespected women even more when we can't even define them. They can't be defined. And there isn't a woman in here that won't say, oh, I'm defined. And they know who they are, and they know that they are a woman, as God has called them to be and made them to be. we continually get it wrong. We continually get it wrong with how we treat women. And the Bible is replete with commands, direction, and context on how we should treat women. And they are certainly defined in the Bible. So I want to look at a verse this morning that I think encapsulate a lot of the problem and the remedy. The problem and the remedy. And that is, I'll get back to that one, 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. Now, a lot of people don't like this verse either. But this verse speaks a lot of truth. And this verse speaks to the problem as well as the remedy. It says, 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7, I can't speak this morning. You husbands, in the same way, live with your wives in an understanding way, as with someone weaker, since she is a woman, and show her honor as a fellow heir of the grace of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered. Now, when we look at this with the modern eye, what first pops out with you that we have a problem with? I just saw some women mouth, weaker. I didn't say it. It's in the Bible, right? But let's explain what that means. Let's explain what that means. Okay? But I want us to look at this here. We're gonna look at this section by section, and we're gonna see the problem and we're gonna see the remedy all in this one verse. Okay? So we're gonna get to that portion here in just a second. And we're gonna see how that is actually being used to discriminate you yet even today. So let's look at first thing. The first thing we need to do, brethren, men, there for understanding there. See, it says, live with your wives in an understanding way. Now, that word, your wives, there is added. You might see in your Bibles that it's in italics. And so it's added there based on the context earlier when Peter is talking to the wives and the husbands. And the husbands, he says, moreover, husbands, moreover, in addition to all that I've been talking to you about this, back to chapter 2, he says, honor all people. And now in on the relationship of husband and wife. But also utilize this in how we should treat women and show them respect. And so wives in an understanding way. And so that word live there means cohabitate, to dwell. It brings us back to Genesis. And they will be together. Peter is just repeating this. To dwell, to be together. God wants a husband and wife to be together, to live together, to be in the same home together, to be in the same house together, to be in the same bed together. Yes, it even brings that into the conversation. But he says, live with your wives in an understanding way. That word understanding is a familiar word that we know from the Bible. It's gnosis. And oftentimes it's used to describe our understanding of the Bible. But in general, it means knowledge signified in general intelligence. This is where the women might laugh. Knowledge signified in general intelligence and understanding. So, man, what do we need to have with our women? We need to have general intelligence and understanding. Now, specifically, do we need, in this context, do we need to know all women? No, that's a mountain too high to climb. But God says, I do want you to know your wives. I do want you to know your wives. And so how do we know our wives, husband? Men, how do you get to know the women that you are trying to pursue, that you would like to date, that you would have a relationship with? You know them. You know their hearts. You know their minds. You know, as I was studying this, preparing for this lesson, I kept getting pounded with this same things that I'm saying to you. I am pounding my mind and heart with as I've studied this lesson all week, and I need to step up. I need to know Lene better than I know any person. he's even saying it. And I know sometimes that can be difficult. This is not short of what God is telling us to do. Live with your wives in an understanding way. Know them. Be the smartest person. Be an expert on your wife. Be an expert on the woman that you're pursuing. And never stop. And never stop. Young women, if the man that's trying to pursue you, wanting to know about you, give him a chance. If it's inquiring about your family, inquiring about your belief, or what you love, or what you enjoy, or your interests, your hobbies, the things you love to do, he is not going to be an expert of you. He's not going to know and be of you. He's just not. He can't. Because they may just be more concerned about himself and what he wants you to do for him. And that's not living with your wife in an understanding way. That's living with your wife in a selfish way. And he's not worth your time. And men, if you are not searching to understand the woman you are pursuing, she's not going to be for you. You're not worthy of her time. You're not. Live with your wives in an understanding way. Be an expert of the woman you're trying to pursue and of the wife that you already have. The next thing here is it says, as with someone weaker. Here is the qualifier, if you will. As with someone weaker, since she is a woman. And this is what we hate. This is what, I don't like this. This is what, when I looked out into the audience and said, what don't you like about this? And all the women have said, weaker. All right. Well, Peter doesn't say exactly what he's talking about. Okay? He doesn't say exactly what he's talking about. However, if you read on, we're going to this in just a second, he says he's going to qualify how we do this, her as a fellow heir of the grace of life, a fellow heir. Okay? So it's not talking about her spiritually. She's not weaker spiritually because she's a fellow heir. Okay? And she's not going to be someone who has less intelligence. There's plenty of women across and in this room that are smarter than I am, have more intelligence than I am. Men and women are equally intelligent. So when we look across the board, then what is left with, generally speaking? That now women are even being disrespected as well today. Okay? That leaves us here with the idea of being physically weaker. Generally speaking, if you look out into nature, you find this as well. It's speaking about, generally speaking, women are physically weaker than men. That doesn't make them physically weak. That just makes them, generally speaking, physically weaker. So here is how, women, you are being disrespected with this yet again today. You have men who are saying that they are women. And they're competing in your sports. We have found just another way for men to disrespect women yet again. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but that's another lesson. But this is how it's happening. We're continually disrespecting women. Over and over and over and over again. So when he says this is generally speaking physically. So we have to be careful with this, both men and women. Because we have disrespected women so much that sometimes we can say something innocent and it be received in the wrong way. And I want to suggest something here for you, for both men and women. Women, I'm treading lightly here and carefully. When a man offers to help carry something, think that he doesn't think you can't do it. I would venture to say with people that men that I think are similarly like-minded like me, that 50% of the men often do something with the gift that they have. Have you ever thought about it that way? If we understand this to be God's truth, and I believe we do, then generally speaking, men are stronger than women physically. That does not mean that women are not capable. Please don't leave here thinking that James said that women aren't physically capable. That's not what I'm saying, okay? I hope that you don't come away with that. What I am saying is how God created us is, generally speaking, men are stronger than women. Can we agree with that? Generally speaking. Are there some women that are stronger than men? Yes, there are. Without a doubt. But when a man offers to do something that might require some physical strength, don't think that he's trying to offend you to think that you're not capable. Take it as he's using a gift that he's been given and wants to offer you that gift. Now, are there men that are out there that treat you and feel like, she's not capable of doing that, I better go and help the little weak lady? Yeah, there are men that are out there like that, without a doubt. But I would hope that the men that you come across to and hear, and if not, men, listen up, that they're treating you in this way with honor and respect, not because they think you're weak. Not because you... Because we need to get to a place, brethren, where we don't have to be defensive. That we should be able to treat each other with honor and respect and not take that into doubt. And not think that a young man who is trying to do something that he thinks might be right, and you might respond, I'm perfectly capable of doing this on my own. And I've had that happen. I was trained from a young boy. I was impetus. And then she opened her. But brethren, part of the problem she's acting that way is our fault. History of men treating women horribly. They have come to that point where they have to respond that way. Never have had. We should never have had. At this time, in Jesus' time, they honor. What is it means value by which the price is fixed. Well, what is that price? What is the value? Well, Peter qualifies it. That value, she's a fellow heir of the grace of life. That's the value. See how significant this one verse is and how much it offers to us? It explains the difference of men and women, but it doesn't give men the authority to manhandle women. Let me just say to you young men, manhandling a woman does not make you a man. It does not show your masculinity. It shows your weakness. because you're using what you have over her to get your way. And that's selfish and weak. You should never put your hands on a woman to harm her. Because we need to honor her as someone who's a fellow heir of the grace of life. She is equal to you in God's eyes. You need to treat her as such. We need to treat women this way. They are equal. We are equal in God's eyes, and so we need to treat her in that way, as equal. You go back to 1 Peter chapter 1, the verse that was read there by Scott in chapter 1, verse 3 through 5. Let me read this again. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who according to his great mercy has caused us, men and women, to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to obtain an inheritance. That's why she's a fellow heir. In chapter 3, to obtain an inheritance which is imperishable and undefiled and will not fade away, reserved in heaven for you men and women. She is a joint participant. That's what fellow heir means. She's part of it. She is equal. Christianity elevated the status and value of women. It was never meant to lower her value. We see this. We had great lessons taught by James Nunley on Wednesday night that actually spoke a lot to this. Maybe not directly, but certainly it was discussed in this. But we see the difference in Jesus is who the first person that he speaks to is who? Is a woman. And what does he tell her to do? Get out of here. You shouldn't be here. You don't belong here. What are you doing here? Go get a man. Does he say any of those things? He says, go and be a part of what you witnessed and tell the men. Christianity, when you read, brethren, when you read the words of God, you cannot miss how women are supposed to be treated, and we've got it wrong. Now, speaking in general, I don't know what's going on here in this church building. I hope that there's not been a woman here that's been abused. And there's a number of different ways in which that can happen. Galatians 3:28-29 says, there is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free man, there is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. And if you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's, men and women, descendants, heirs according to the promise, men and women. In other words, there's no hierarchy in equality. We need to know her and we need to honor her. We need to show her the respect of the value that God has already placed on her. We're just an extension of the love of God. That's really what we should be. So what does this have to do with Mother's Day? I thought of a lot of different ideas about what I should bring in a sermon on Mother's Day. And certainly there's a lot of different things that you could go to, a lot of different mothers that you could go to, and a lot of different women that you could speak of the Bible that would be worthy of speaking about today on talking about Mother's Day. But I came back to this because if we don't get this right, mothers aren't going to be respected like they should either. Mothers are disrespected too, because the work that they do is not valued like it should be. And so once a year, we celebrate our mothers. In 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 7, I don't see any day that Peter says you need to honor your wife. And on this day, honor your women. And all the other days, do whatever you like. Go play golf. Go hang out with the guys. No. You're not going to be an expert. You're not going to be one with knowledge and intelligence on a woman if you're not trying to do this each and every day. And when you do this each and every day, Mother's Day is not so unique. It's not so abnormal. It's not the only time that we cook for them. It's not the only time that we take them out. It's not the only time that we give them a card. It's not the only time that we do this, that, and the other. Because you know what? If we're good, if we're knowledgeable, if we're experts, we know what they'd want for Mother's Day, right? But that also means that they might want those things throughout the rest of the year. And we need to be reminded that she is in the image of God. Male and female. God created humanity. He created them both, male and female, he created them. Mothers, you deserve to have an amazing day. Treatment throughout. We've got to start with how we treat women first. Then we will be better understand how we treat our moms and take care of them in the precious people that they are. Because God has blessed us with amazing women. We have amazing women in our lives. We have amazing women within this congregation that do tireless work because they love and serve God. And they are a great example to us men to do the same. We could learn so much from the women that we have in this congregation. I hope what may have been somewhat of a solemn Mother's Day lesson. I even told my young adults class, I said, you may need to pray for me on this one. This is not going to be the usual Mother's Day route that we might take. But I think it's an important lesson that doesn't get discussed in the church enough. The church needs to know how to treat their women so that we can show the world how to treat their women. We need to be the examples, brethren. We need to be the examples. If you are struggling with, maybe you're a husband, maybe you're a young man, with how to honor and respect the women in your life, and you need this opportunity to come and ask for prayers, maybe you don't want to do it out in front of everybody, maybe you do. If you don't, come to someone, ask, come to me later, come to the elders. Let's sit and talk and pray about it. I certainly don't have all the answers. I'm still learning every day to be a better expert for my wife. And I owe that to her. If you're struggling with something outside of the context of the lesson this morning and you want to come forward and ask for prayers, you can do that this morning as together we stand and sing.